Okay, so as you guys know, God works and shows mysteries and shows revelation through patterns and numbers. Okay, and this is Ecclesiastes chapter 1, verse 9, and Ecclesiastes chapter 3, verse 15, where it says that things repeat themselves. Jesus is called the Word, and words, letters, are numbers. The fourth book in the Bible is called Numbers. The number 4 means door in Hebrew. Jesus said, I am the door, so he's also not only the word, but he's the number. He is the numbers. So right here I have a basic chart, okay? And what this timeline is going to show us is some patterns. Now we have 0, and then we have 30 AD, which was when Jesus Christ died, buried, and rose from the grave. 2,000 years later, we have 2030 AD. Now I'm going to explain what that means in a second. Now if you go 1,470 years before 0, you have 1,470 BC. I'm going to explain why that date is important in this. Now, what I'm about to show you is very amazing. In the Old Testament, Moses was told to wander the desert for 40 days with the Israelites. Then it turned into 40 years that they were not allowed into the Promised Land. Okay? And then when they crucified Jesus Christ here, 30 AD, that turned into 40 Jubilees. A Jubilee is 50 years. 40 of them is 2,000 years, 2030. Okay? And then it's all over. The rapture's before that, but it's all over at 2030. So we see this pattern with the 40, right? 40, 40, and 40. And then also 3 40s is 120. I've talked about the 120 before, how from Adam to the end, it will be 120 Jubilees, which is a 6,000 year period. 120 times 50 is 6,000 years. 6 is the number of man. There were 6 days of creation, symbolizing the 6,000 year period, because a day is as 1,000 years with the Lord. So, now that's one pattern. Also, the pattern with the 40 is that Jonah went to the to Gentiles, and that's a type and shadow of when God sent somebody to the Gentiles here. And he had 40 days. 40 days. And so there's another 40 there. See? So God extrapolated that to 40 Jubilees from Jesus Christ's resurrection to 2030. Now, the next thing I wanted to show you is really important because this is not commonly talked about. But in the book of Revelation chapter 12, we see in verse 6 that there's 3.5 years after the resurrection of Christ, which is a picture of our rapture up here, that the Israelites, the woman, which is Israel, is scattered and caused to go into the desert for 3.5 years. And in verse 6 it says, 42 months, 3.5 years. And that's talking about after Christ's resurrection, 42 months. But it's also a type and shadow of the 42 months at the end here, Jacob's trouble. Okay? Now, the controversy is verse 14. Verse 14 says that it sounds like it's talking about the exact same thing, in which it kind of is. It says that the woman will go into the wilderness on a great eagle, and she'll be nourished there. But it doesn't say 3.5 years or 42 months. It says a time, times, and half a time. So I used to take that as 1 year, 2 year, and a half a year. So it's just repeating itself. That's not what that means. It says a time, times, and half a time, because it's not saying 3.5 years. It's saying 3,500 years. And you want to see something profound? That if you go to 2030 and you go back 3,500 years, you land at 1470 BC, 1470 BC. And do you know what happened in that year? The plagues of Egypt. Remember the plagues of Egypt and why they happened? The plagues of Egypt. Do you know what happens in 2030? Well, a little before that, all these plagues to start. The 7th seal with the 7 bowl judgments, the 7 trumpets in the book of Revelation, the same thing. Not exactly the same thing, but it is the same thing. You see that? And God is going to come back and regather Israel, the woman. Just like 1470 BC, He gathered Israel and took them out of Egypt. You see that? The same exact thing. He's going to gather them and take them to their homeland. 3,500 years, not 3.5 years, but 3,500 years ago, same thing happened. That's what a time, times, and half a time actually means. That is so profound to me. Because you know what that does? That double stamps 2030. That we're right on the money for the second coming of Jesus, 2029, 2030. We're on the money, baby. We got our numbers right. Okay? Now check this out. Check this out. 1470 BC, right? We know that we went 3,500 years back. 14 plus 70, do you know what that is? 84. Do you know what 84 is? 84 months. What's 84 months? 7 years. Do you see these patterns, these clues that God is giving us everywhere? 7 years is 14 plus 70. Now we all know about Daniel's 70th week that we are in. We're not in Jacob's trouble. Jacob's trouble is the last 42 months. We're in the first 42 months. We're just in Daniel's 70th week. Is that not... I mean, that's why I can't talk to that many people, because when they don't take the Bible serious, when they don't care about it, and I think it's just a book. This is not just a book. You can't even... These books are written hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years apart. And this is happening. That's crazy. That's crazy. This mystery of what time, times, and half a time means, going back 3,500 years and then landing on that, the exact same thing that's going to happen in 2030, 3,500 years ago in 1470 BC, the same thing is happening? You can't even make that up, man. That's what that means. So it's showing us in Revelation chapter 12 that 3.5 years, which is Jacob's trouble, which would, started around 2026, 2025, 26. And then it's showing us the 3,500 years, which is taking us all the way back to Egypt, where the same thing happened. God put the plagues against Egypt, and He gathered Israel and took them out of there. What's going to happen in 2030 is the same thing. He's going to gather His people and smite the world. That's crazy, man. That is so crazy.